Throughout history, borders change, leaders fall, and ideologies fade, but one force remains constant: national interests. Ever wondered why superpowers make the decisions they do? The answer shapes every global crisis and economic policy you'll ever witness. Throughout human history, one force has remained constant in shaping the world: national interests. From the sprawling empires of antiquity to today's global superpowers, nations have consistently prioritized their survival, security, and prosperity above all else. Ancient Rome expanded not from idealism, but to secure vital resources and buffer zones against threats. Modern superpowers operate with the same fundamental calculus: security, economic advantage, and global influence remain the eternal priorities. This perspective isn't cynical, it's realistic. Political theorists across centuries recognize this truth. Machiavelli advised princes to act in the state's interest rather than chase moral ideals. Centuries later, Hans Morgenthau formalized this view, arguing that international politics is defined by the pursuit of power. The realist school acknowledges what history consistently demonstrates: nations act primarily to protect and advance their interests, with other considerations secondary. The colonial era provides our most vivid example. European powers didn't expand globally from cultural curiosity. They sought resources, strategic positions, and trading advantages. The British Empire's control of global shipping lanes, Spain's extraction of New World silver, and the scramble for Africa's resources each reflects the same fundamental driver. While methods evolve and rhetoric shifts, national interests remain the unchanging core that explains state behavior across time. This pattern continues today, reflected in policies from trade agreements to military alliances. Throughout history, nations have masterfully evolved their rhetoric while pursuing the same fundamental goals. Today, terms like human rights, democracy promotion, and climate action often serve as modern disguises for traditional national interests. When powerful nations advocate for these causes, observe carefully which interventions they choose to pursue and which they ignore. The pattern invariably aligns with their economic and strategic advantages. The language has changed, but the calculus remains coldly pragmatic. Consider the evolution of energy politics. From the oil wars of the 20th century to today's fierce competition for renewable technology dominance, resource control remains the constant driver. Nations that once secured oil fields through military might now battle for rare earth minerals and strategic positioning in green energy markets. The resource type changes, the imperative for control persists. As one observer noted, there is truly nothing new in the motives behind these policies. Similarly, international institutions, often portrayed as transcending national interests, actually reflect existing power dynamics. The UN Security Council's veto structure, the voting weights at the IMF, and the negotiating leverage at the WTO all mirror real-world power distributions. These organizations don't replace national interests, they institutionalize them. In the grand theater of international relations, the costumes and scripts may change, but the actors' motivations remain eternally consistent. In the theater of global politics, economics has emerged as the new battlefield. Nations that once projected power through military might now wage their campaigns through trade policies, sanctions, and financial systems. The world map is redrawn not by conquest, but by economic interdependence, where a signature on a trade agreement can be more powerful than a fleet of warships. The United States' global taxation policy exemplifies this evolution. Through initiatives like the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, America extends its reach beyond physical borders, ensuring its citizens and corporations contribute regardless of location. This isn't novel thinking, it's national interest adapted to the digital age, allowing the U.S. to maintain economic advantage in a borderless financial world. Perhaps no contemporary example better illustrates economics as national strategy than China's Belt and Road Initiative. This vast network of infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe, echoes ancient Chinese trade routes, but serves modern ambitions. By investing billions in ports, railways, and energy facilities abroad, China secures resources, opens markets, and extends influence, achieving through economic partnership what previous powers attempted through colonization. These modern manifestations prove that while methods evolve, national interests remain the eternal force shaping our world. The currency may have changed from gunpowder to gross domestic product, but the game remains the same. As we look to the future, the eternal force of national interests continues to shape our world, merely finding new arenas to exert its influence. Technology, space, and cyberspace have emerged as the new battlegrounds. Nations compete for quantum supremacy, fight for dominance in space resources, and wage silent wars through digital networks. The players may use new tools, but their motivations remain unchanged: security, power, and prosperity for their citizens at the expense of rivals. Climate change presents perhaps the most profound example of this continuity. Behind the veneer of global cooperation lie calculations firmly rooted in national interest. Countries support green initiatives that benefit their economies while resisting those that threaten key industries. Climate policies, like all policies throughout human history, ultimately revolve around securing national advantages. There is truly nothing new in these motives. For individuals and communities to thrive in this reality, adaptation is essential. Understanding that nations will act predictably in their self-interest provides a framework for anticipating global trends. By recognizing these patterns, we can position ourselves advantageously, developing skills valuable to our nations, investing in technologies aligned with national priorities, and building communities resilient to the shifting tides of international competition. In a world where national interests remain the eternal force, awareness becomes our greatest asset. In a world dominated by state power, where do you, the individual, fit in? Understanding that national interests drive global policies isn't just academic knowledge, it's your advantage. When you recognize that nations act primarily in self-interest, political rhetoric suddenly becomes transparent. Campaign promises, foreign policy shifts, economic sanctions all make sense when viewed through the lens of national priorities. This awareness helps you anticipate market changes, understand news cycles, and navigate the complex web of global events with clarity that others lack. National priorities directly shape your personal opportunities. From investment landscapes to career prospects, the decisions made in capitals around the world create both barriers and pathways in your life. The energy sector worker, whose job depends on national resource policies, the investor navigating currency fluctuations driven by trade wars, the entrepreneur identifying opportunities in government priorities, all are responding to the invisible hand of national interests. Yet this awareness brings ethical considerations. How do you balance patriotic sentiment with global citizenship? When your nation's interests conflict with universal values or your personal ethics, where do you stand? This is perhaps the greatest challenge for the informed citizen. Recognizing the eternal force of national interests while maintaining your moral compass in an interconnected world where both individual choices and collective action matter more than ever before. While leaders change and eras pass, national interests endure as our guiding force. In an ever-shifting world, remember, how are eternal national interests shaping your world today?